Lines on this very beautiful championship Saturday. I'm Caroline Fenton, I'm your host, as I am every Saturday, and super excited that I will be here every Saturday throughout the bowl season. So it doesn't end in just the regular season. I will be here every Saturday bringing you betting picks, betting advice, and any information that you may need to know for not just the SEC slate of the day, but all of the bowl slates from now through the national championship. So I'm very excited, and thank you to 312 Pizza Company for having me throughout the bowl season as well. I am here now, 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. It's my favorite place to come watch a game, come hang out at 312 Pizza Company. So if you need a place to come watch Georgia, Alabama, or we have Oklahoma State and Baylor kicking off very soon. We have Michigan, Iowa, Big Ten championships. We've got a great slate on this championship Saturday. So if you want a place to come hang out at 312 Pizza Company. They have great pizza. If pizza's not your thing, they have a bunch of other great Chicago favorites on the menu, a bunch of local beers. So come grab a beer, come grab some pizza, come grab some food, and hang out at 312 Pizza Company, because I will be here watching the slate of games for today. Now it's Southeastern CaroLINES. We've only got one SEC game today, so I want to get into that. Georgia, Alabama, a great game with huge college football playoff implications. But every game on the slate today has college football playoff implications. And that's, although I am in favor of an 8-game playoff, a bit of a playoff expansion, that is the beauty of a 4-team playoff, is that every single game today matters. And that the performance of every team today affects the teams that are currently ranked 2 through 6. And I say 2 through 6 because I don't think that the game today necessarily affects Georgia's berth into the college football playoff. If they lose to Alabama today, Georgia's still in. And now that makes the college football playoff committee's job so much more difficult, because then you're dealing with several one-loss teams, and you have to look at all of the factors that contribute, not just the record. So you're looking at, the eye test. Are you looking at how the game played out? Because where Georgia stands could totally change based off of the game today. I mean, Georgia could blow out Alabama, and, their spot at number 1 would be totally secured. Alabama could win by a field goal, and that could affect where Georgia stands. Alabama could win by 15, and that would affect where Georgia stands. But I don't think that affects their college football playoff berth. But looking at number 2, Michigan taking on Iowa today. If Michigan loses to Iowa, I don't see Michigan getting into the college football playoff. If Michigan beats Iowa, they're in. You've also got Oklahoma State and Baylor. Oklahoma State currently sitting at 5. Baylor's the number 9 team in the country. This isn't because I know that Oklahoma State is talked about so much because they're the next one in. But Baylor is not some sort of team that you can just bat an eye at. Currently, Oklahoma State is favored by 4.5. I do think Oklahoma State wins by more than 4.5. I do think that Oklahoma State wins by probably a touchdown. But I would not be surprised if Baylor gets a win here and Oklahoma State's shot at the college football playoff is no longer. But I think the most interesting spot here is number 4, Cincinnati. And it's December, it's final season. So I'll talk about it this way. When you're a student, if there's a certain grade that you want in the class, I mean, I've crunched the numbers before. I have this in the class, and this is what I want in the class. This is what I need to get on the final. If you're currently sitting with a certain percentage in a class, and your goal percentage is, XYZ, you could sit at a spot for that final where you're not going to get that grade that you want. You can study as hard as you want. You can get 100%. You could do perfect on the final. You're not going to get that grade you want because there may be just certain factors working against you where you can't get to that point. And I think that's currently where Cincinnati stands. I know that Cincinnati's sitting in a spot where right now, if the college football playoff started today, they'd be in. But essentially, none of the rankings have mattered up until now. This is the weekend where it matters. I mean, Cincinnati could be sitting at 4. They could win today, and it might make you think, oh, well, Cincinnati will get in because, they're at 4. And if they do all the right things today, then that's where they'll sit. I don't think that there's a scenario in which Cincinnati gets into the college football playoff. I'll explain it this way. And I think that's a very dangerous thing that the college football playoff is doing. If they do decide to keep Cincinnati out. If Cincinnati wins today and the college football playoff keeps them out of the final four, that's the college football playoff committee's way of saying, we do not care what you do. If you are a group of five school, you won't get in. And sure, Cincinnati probably could have beaten their opponents by more. And if they blew out every single opponent, it'd be a lot more difficult for the committee to keep them out because you can only really play who's on your schedule. But Cincinnati's a group of five school that beat the number six team in the country on the road. That's incredibly difficult. And that's what I thought Cincinnati needed to do to solidify their spot in the college football playoff was to go to Notre Dame and to beat Notre Dame and Notre Dame still be one of the best teams in the country. I thought that's all they needed to do. But I sit here today, and if Cincinnati wins today, I don't think that they get into the college football playoff because I don't think the college football playoff committee wants Cincinnati in the college football playoff. I would love for Cincinnati to get in because I think that that's setting a precedent that you can be UT San Antonio, that you can be a group of five school, that you don't have to be Alabama or Clemson or Ohio State or Oklahoma or Georgia or whoever it may be. You don't have to be one of those powerful Power Five schools in order to get into the college football playoff. If you go out there and you play who's on your schedule and you beat them handedly, you can get in. I would love nothing more than to see Cincinnati in the college football playoff. But there are a few scenarios that could shake out today that would leave Cincinnati out. And I think one of those scenarios is this SEC championship today. Georgia wins, Alabama, it would seem to be that Alabama would be left out. But if Alabama wins today, Georgia and Alabama both get in. I believe that wholeheartedly. I don't know where they would stand. I don't know how they would rank them. That's not my job. If I'm the college football playoff committee, you have to put both of them in because they're both one-loss schools and they're both, the Georgia sitting at one, Alabama at three. If Alabama beats the number one team in the country, Alabama's in. If Georgia was the number one team in the country and has one loss on their schedule, they're going to get in. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was a scenario where Alabama lost and has two losses on their schedule and they still get in. And I think that's incredibly dangerous for the college football playoff committee to do because it's a totalitarian government. They make the rules and they break their own rules and they can do whatever they want because they make the rules and we're still going to watch it. I know for a fact, I don't, whatever the college football playoff committee does, I'm still going to watch college football. If Alabama loses the SEC championship and they lose to the number one team in the country by a field goal, by 2 points, by 1 point, the college football playoff committee can absolutely make an argument that Alabama deserves to be in as a two-loss team. And I say it's dangerous because they make the rules, they break the rules. They can say eye test, they can say head-to-head, they can say quality of losses, and they can say difficulty of schedule. But throughout its entirety of the college football playoff, there has been one rule that they have stayed consistent with throughout the existence of the college football playoff. And there has not been one single two-loss team that has gotten into the college football playoff. And I think that's kind of the standard that we as college football fans and watchers of college football have kind of continued with as well. You lose two games, and that's not good enough to be one of the four best teams in the country. But I wouldn't be surprised if Alabama keeps it close, they play well, Alabama's up the half, and Georgia finds a way to sneak in and win, that the college football playoff committee puts Alabama in at 4 and bounces Cincinnati. Do I think that's fair? Absolutely not. I think that if you win all of your games, you deserve to be in, especially if you beat the number 6 team in the country. If Oklahoma State wins today, which I personally do think that they will, against Baylor, the number 9 team in the country, Oklahoma State gets in over Cincinnati. Cincinnati can go 13-0, and I don't see a way in which Cincinnati gets in. I think Michigan wins their game against Iowa. I think it's going to be a great game, and I'm excited to watch it. Michigan gets in because they beat Ohio State handedly, a team that I think was one of the best teams in the country. And, if they were in the college football playoff, I'm sure that they could win a game. I don't think they would at all, but I I think they'd win a game. I think that the College Football Playoff Committee is doing something very dangerous. And I think that they may be doing this to say, hey, well, if you don't think it's fair, we have a 12-team layout that I don't think a lot of people are in favor of. But they will continue to make decisions that will lead people to support their agenda. I am an anti college football playoff committee. And I don't think that it's necessarily fair. And I don't know what's going to shake out. This is just my opinion. This is just my feeling that they are going to look at some of the teams that are in contention: Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Oklahoma State, even Notre Dame. Notre Dame is very much so in play for this. And they see Cincinnati and they say, hey, what's a better matchup? Michigan, Oklahoma State, or Michigan, Cincinnati? I mean, I'd love to see Cincinnati in. I just don't see the college football playoff doing that. But that's why we play the games. And that's why today is so fun, because there are so many scenarios that could shake out. If Oklahoma State loses, bye, Oklahoma State. You're number 5 and you very much so are in contention. If you lose today, you're out. I already said, I think no matter what happens today, barring a Georgia blowout, because if Georgia blows out Alabama, I'm sorry, Alabama, the way that you've played this season, you're out. Alabama keeps it close. The College Football Playoff Committee very much so has an argument to put Alabama in. But that's why today is so fun. Rant over. On to the game, because we have got some money to make today with the SEC Championship. Georgia, Alabama in Atlanta. And I think from the very beginning of the season, even, for sure halfway through the season, this is kind of how we expected things to shake out. But Georgia, Alabama, Georgia opened as a 4.5-point favorite. It has then grown to a 6.5-point favorite. I'm taking Georgia minus 6.5, and I do it for a few reasons. I think that Alabama definitely has a chance at winning this game. I mean, Bryce Young has done a terrific job in his first season as the Alabama starter. Alabama is averaging about 43 points a game, and Bryce Young has done an outstanding job. He's just shy of the 4,000-yard mark. He's sitting at 3,901 yards, 40 touchdowns, and just 4 interceptions so far this year. He leads all SEC quarterbacks in production per game. He's averaging about 325 yards a game. I mean, Bryce Young has been outstanding, and Alabama's offense can absolutely rack up yards and rack up points. And I think that Alabama has a shot to win this game. Another reason why I think Alabama has a shot to win this game is because of Nick Saban. I mean, if we've learned anything about Nick Saban, it's that Alabama could play a team close. Alabama could be outplayed, but they will always find a way to win. And Nick Saban always gets his players ready and prepared and in the mindset to win big games. And I think that Nick Saban understands that there has not been a single team get into the college football playoff with 2 losses on their schedule. Nick Saban knows what's at stake here. And I think that Nick Saban has a way of preparing his players. And Nick Saban puts this mindset and this culture in his players and in his locker room that they understand what's at stake here. They understand that Georgia's the best team in the country where it stands. And I don't think that Alabama is anywhere close to the best team in the country. They've played way too many teams way too closely. But I think that if there is a single coach in the country that can get their team ready for a game like this with playoff implications, with the national championship on the line, Nick Saban can do it. So I wouldn't be surprised. But I'm taking Georgia minus 6.5 because I think a touchdown is fair. And I think there are a few ways that Georgia can win this game. Georgia's offense isn't best team in the country worthy, but it doesn't need to be, because Georgia's defense is just that good. Georgia's defense is allowing just 3.5 yards a carry on average for rushers. Against all of their SEC opponents, those running backs and rushers have averaged just 3.5 yards a carry. And you're looking at some of these running backs in the SEC. I mean, you're looking at Chris Rodriguez at Kentucky, who led the SEC in rushing at the midpoint in the season. I mean, you're looking at Snoop Connor, who could just run up and down any defense. You're looking at Matt Corral even, who it seemed like the core of Ole Miss's offense was Matt Corral, run it, Matt Corral, run it, Matt Corral for 4 yards, Matt Corral rushes for 7 yards. Alabama has been, or excuse me, Georgia, although they didn't play Ole Miss this season, I mean, there are legitimate rushing threats in the SEC, and Georgia has limited them to just 3.5 yards a carry, which I think is outstanding. Jordan Davis is a name that, doesn't play a very sexy position, defensive tackle for Georgia. But Jordan Davis is a name that if you don't know it, now you know, because he is incredibly impressive. And now his Heisman odds, he opened the season at 80-1 Heisman odds for Jordan Davis, and it's increased to 35-1 for a defensive tackle, because that's how good he is. I don't care if you are a grown man. He'll pancake you, and he'll get you down, and he'll stop the ball. I think that Georgia's defense is just that good. And even though I just sang the praises of Alabama's offense, I don't care how good of an offense you have. Georgia's defense is going to be able to shut it down. And Alabama's offense, I mean, their offensive line is a little bit shaky, and it's allowed how many sacks this season? I want to say 40. I mean, you got to protect your quarterback. And when you're staring down a defensive line like Georgia has, they're going to get to your quarterback. And I don't care how good your offense is. If the quarterback can't get the ball out of their hands, you're not going to score very many points now. So I think that Georgia's defense is just that good. And Alabama's offense has proven throughout this season that they can keep it close. Auburn, they very easily could have lost that game, went to 4 overtimes. They were just an Auburn safety away from losing that game. Tennessee, the final stats and the final score would lead you to believe that Alabama blew Tennessee out, but that wasn't the case. I don't know the final score off the top of my head. It was 40-something to 20-something, I believe. Tennessee was in that game. Alabama was making silly mistakes, false starts, muffed punts. They didn't look like a Nick Saban-led team. And I say that to mean incredibly disciplined. They didn't look incredibly disciplined against Tennessee. LSU was 8 yards away from winning that game. They were on the goal line. Max Johnson, LSU's quarterback, couldn't seem to get it done. But if LSU would have been able to capitalize there, that would have been a second loss on Alabama's schedule. So I look at this line, 6.5. And if you take the performances and the numbers and the stats and the scores from both of these teams and you wipe the name away, you look at them as just Team X and Team Y, Georgia, with what they've been able to do this season, would be favored by so much more than what Alabama has done on the stat sheet. But because it's Alabama, that's why it's close. That's why it's closer than, I would say 10.5, maybe even 13.5. Because I think Vegas knows that people are going to side with Alabama. But I don't think Alabama has done anything to be able to really say that we can keep it within 6.5 points. I think another reason why Georgia could win this game is that they're getting one of their best wide receivers back. Georgia's offense, I said, hasn't really done anything incredibly outstanding. Stetson Bennett, I would say, is a quarterback that is not that different from Jake Fromm or from any of their quarterbacks from the past. They're good. They're fine. They're average. You can put the game in their hands and you can trust them. But there's a reason why the Jake Fromm teams of the past haven't been the number 1 team in the country. It's because they haven't had a defense like this. So Stetson Bennett can afford to perform like that, to, pass the ball off, short screen here, short screen there, put up a decent amount of points. But it's nothing outstanding. I would say that Bryce Young's the better quarterback on that field. But Georgia's offense is getting one of their best wide receivers back from injury. And I think that's going to be huge. I don't know the chemistry within that quarterback wide receiver room. I don't know the chemistry there. But I think that having a more depth at wide receiver and having another threat on offense just makes Georgia's chances that much better, because their defense is going to be able to stop Alabama. But having more depth and having more talent at that wide receiver position, having more depth and talent on their offense is going to give them an even better shot there. I think Alabama very much so could keep it close because that's just what Alabama does. But from what I've seen throughout the season, Georgia is so much more the better team. I think Georgia wins it today, probably by a touchdown, maybe by more. I think Georgia wins it by a touchdown. They solidify their spot, their top spot, and they get the number one seed in the college football playoff. Now, I already said, I think Alabama can find their way in no matter what. And maybe the college football playoff committee has more integrity than I expect them to. I'm not banking on it. I think Georgia solidifies their spot, their number one spot today. And I think that Georgia gets it done. Minus 6.5. That is going to do it for me today. Caroline Fenton, I am live from 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. Come hang at 312 Pizza Company. It's a really, really fun place to hang out. They have great food. They have a bunch of beers on tap. And I have a great friend that works behind the bar. So make sure to come say hey to him and come hang out here at 312 Pizza Company. They're also hiring. So if you're looking for a little bit of money on the side, if you're looking to pick up a gig here in Nashville, come to 312 Pizza Company, fill out an application. They're hiring in the kitchen, at the bar, wait staff, host staff. So whatever you're looking for, make sure to contact 312 Pizza Company because I know that they would appreciate your help. That is going to do it for me today. I will see y'all throughout bowl season. I'm so incredibly excited that 312 Pizza Company has allowed me to come out every Saturday through bowl season. So I'll have all of your bowl picks. And we have Oklahoma State and Baylor kicking off at 11. So be sure to tune into that because that game also has huge college football playoff implications. So it's a great slate of games today on this championship Saturday. Enjoy it, and I will see y'all next week.